Auto mode on the Polaroid I-2 is absolutely infuriating, but there's a solution to that. Before I get to that, I just want to let you know you can watch my initial Polaroid I-2 video titled Why I Bought a Polaroid I-2. Link is in the description. One big complaint I had with my Polaroid Now Plus was the exposure. It was hokey. It just didn't really work a lot of the time. A lot of the time I would go outside and shoot a photo just out of the box on auto and it would be blown out. And with a Polaroid camera, you want to be able to pull it out of the box and take a photo with it. And with the Polaroid Now Plus, you could do that if you made all the tweaks to your exposure in the settings, which is in an app, which is kind of dumb. I didn't really like how that worked. I feel like for a Polaroid camera, it kind of defeats the purpose if I can't just pick it up and start taking photos with it. Well, what was appealing to me with the Polaroid I-2 is that it solves the app problem. I can change everything I need to change in the camera. But I realized as I started using the Polaroid I-2, it was having the same exposure issues as the Polaroid Now Plus when shooting in auto mode. I know. One of the big draws of the Polaroid I-2 was manual mode, was the fact that you could shoot manual settings on a Polaroid camera. But manual mode kind of has the same issue. If I were to set a perfect exposure where everything's lined up, where the little thing is in the middle, right? Then outdoors in the middle of the day, each of my Polaroids would be totally blown out. Indoors though, it seems to be fine, but I'll get to that in a second. I found in order to be successful in auto mode and manual mode for that matter, you need to be backing off your exposure by minus 2/3 of a stop. You gotta shoot a little dark. Now, obviously that changes depending on what time of day or where you're shooting Polaroids. For me, I'm shooting a lot wandering around in the middle of the day. And in fact, I think most people are out and about in the middle of the day, so it's not really weird to be shooting Polaroids in the middle of the day. I get that for a 640 ISO film, that can be bright, but you think auto mode's got it. It's got my back on this, right? So it shouldn't be an issue. The light meter on this camera seems to be calibrated for indoor photography. Last week, I went to Miami, and that video will be coming out soon, and I went to the Wynwood Walls, and basically it's the perfect place to kind of stress test your Polaroid. Basically, you're walking around in the bright Miami sun around murals outdoors. But then, as you walk through the grounds of Wynwood Walls, then you go inside to different galleries, and so you're going indoors and outdoors and indoors and outdoors. So it's the perfect test to see the changes in the Polaroid I-2 light meter. So I walked around outdoors and shot minus 2/3 of a stop on auto, and my photos really worked perfectly. Some of them were a little dark when I was in the shade, but overall they worked pretty well. When I would go inside, however, that was too dark, even with flash. So what I would do is if I am to go indoors, then that's when you take off all exposure compensation and just set it back to 0. Then take your photos indoors, and those will turn out fine. Polaroid I-2 works best on auto, out of the box. The light meter seems to like indoors the most, with flash as well. Now, with the double exposure mode, which is essential for my work, I back off by an entire stop because as double exposures work, you're shooting 2 exposures, so you're letting light in twice. So the film is getting exposed twice. So if you shoot at just regular exposure, just a perfect exposure, your end result is definitely going to be blown out. And if auto mode on this camera and the double exposure mode largely works like auto mode, it doesn't really let you change manual settings. The baseline for auto in the Polaroid I-2 is negative 2/3 of a stop. Then you need to go another 1/3 of a stop darker than that. So it's kind of like it seems like the calibration of this camera is a little off for, situations that have a lot of light. So when I back off by an entire stop for double exposures, again, indoors, too dark. Cloudiness, it's a little too dark, but I like dark for my taste. That's just my taste. But a whole stop for double exposures, especially outdoors, seems to be the move. So if you're indoors or it's cloudy for double exposures, I would just back off by minus 2/3 of a stop. So basically the auto's baseline. Knowing all this exposure compensation stuff with the Polaroid I-2 has really helped with my hit rate. I'm wasting a heck of a lot less shots now that I know that. And as far as the camera itself, I love the feel. It feels very premium. It is plastic, but anyone I have let hold my child has really loved how it feels. Got a nice matte texture, and it just feels nice in the hand. That said, I don't think it would survive a major drop or anything. I think it would break pretty easily. And it is clear to me that the Polaroid I-2 is sharper than the SX70 by a decent amount. I've even put a Tiffin Pro Mist filter on mine. What I'm accomplishing with that, I'm not sure. I just thought I would do it because I can use the same filters that I use for my Fujifilm cameras because of the 49mm filter thread. So I thought I'd just throw it on and see. As far as focusing goes, it's not great in low light. And you know, what camera is good in low light? That makes sense, right? But since I can't override it via manual focus, shooting long exposures of, say, a busy interstate below my hotel room is a frustrating experience because the camera refuses to focus to infinity. But there seems to be nothing really to do about that. So overall, am I happy I spent $600 on a Polaroid camera? I would say yes, I am. I'm very happy with this camera overall now that I know how to use it. Using this camera is a learning curve for sure. And it was frustrating to use at the start. And I've seen a lot of other photographers' impressions of this camera, and they had, it seems like, a lot of the same issues I've had with it. But now that I've had some practice, I'm feeling a lot more confident with this camera. I've just been dipping between auto mode and double exposure mode, just using my exposure compensation tips as I talked about in this video. But I do like the manual mode for more tweaking in special situations, or, you know, if I want some specific aperture or shutter speed stuff to go on. Having the option of manual is great in weird environments for sure. And I do tend to like the manual mode for indoors as well, if I have the time to fool with it, because I'm still pretty slow on playing with all the manual settings, trying to figure out where to get the light meter to hit. This camera is just cool. It's very attractive. Everyone will look at you when you pull it out. It's a conversation starter. Personally, that's not why I buy cameras, but it does help you stand out as a photographer, and it will spark conversations with people that you may not have had conversations with otherwise. I can't tell you how many cool conversations I've had with Uber drivers, for instance, when I'm holding this camera. It even sparked me to create a Polaroid Instagram account because I'm so excited to use this camera more regularly. And that account is @RoidRage72. And if you want to follow my main Instagram account, it's @WillMalone. And please subscribe to this channel if you want to watch more videos about a professional photographer who is slowly giving up and shooting everything on auto.